Greetings and salutations. Today we're going to talk about AXANAR. Now, I want to start off by saying that in a previous video where I reviewed Star Trek Renegades, I said I wasn't interested in AXANAR. Maybe I just said that was because it was another prequel series and I like to look forward. But one of the reasons was that I had a bad gut feeling at the time that it was a scam. Okay, now the reason for that is that I watched the making of AXANAR videos on the AXANAR YouTube channel, and in it the guy had clearly said that he was paying everybody a salary, he was paying rent, he was paying caterers, he was paying tradies to do, the sets. Basically he was paying everybody, including himself. Now, a salary is a form of profit. When you get paid a salary, then you can spend it on whatever you want, which means you've made a profit. Those people all made a profit. The whole reason that Paramount allows Star Trek fan films is if they're non-profit. In Star Trek Renegades, nobody gets paid a salary and nobody made a profit. So, in summary, I had already realized that Star Trek AXANAR was a scam, hadn't really verbalized it yet, and then months later or weeks later, Paramount sues them for, violating everything. Alright, so that's my personal opinion. Now what I'm going to do is have my computer read to you a couple of articles, okay, which are online, which are informational and opinion piece articles about AXANAR. And, you can listen for yourself what other people think and the reasons why. Basically, the guy who's producing it has paid himself $38,000 plus as a salary for the first year. Plus, there is a lot of unaccounted money that has been donated, which has not been accounted for. Okay, so end of the day, he's setting up his own studio that he wants to make other movies with that won't be Star Trek movies as well. He said that himself, so that also is just another reason why it seems like a scam. Okay, all right, here we go. So oops. This is an article. I'll put links in the video description. I'm using Fraps to record this, and I just thought I'd show you the prelude to AXANAR thing on repeat in the background. I don't think you'll be able to see the web page though, because Fraps doesn't record for web pages. This is from the BacardManeuver.com. Alright.
This year marks 50 years of Star Trek, a huge event which is celebrated by a new show in the works, a new movie released, and a whole load of other stuff. But it's also got a black cloud above it called AXANAR. To highlight, AXANAR is supposed to be a fan film. Fan films are nothing new. They've been around forever and will be around for a long time to come. AXANAR, by the admission of Alec Peters, the man behind it, believes itself to be more than a fan film and has labeled themselves as an independent Star Trek production. That, combined with some financial concerns, has caught the attention of CBS and, unlike other fan film producers, Peters has money in his pocket for the work he plans to do based on a property he doesn't own. There's been so much support for AXANAR and scaremongering, in large part from the people behind it, but a concerning blind eye or three turned to what's actually going on. Peters himself has outright denied the facts of the situation more than once, and even now he finally has legal representation, after promising he had lawyers, then saying he didn't a few times now. He still keeps going. So I'm going to paste in a post I made on Tumblr a few weeks ago, as there are a lot of inaccuracies in the press Peters is putting out that should be addressed and is being ignored. I'm usually very quiet about this and stay out of anything, but something very worrying is happening here, and a lot of people aren't seeing the questions they should be asking. Fan films are non-profit tributes that are basically fan fiction with cameras. They're allowed to use the tag and the name because they don't make money. They don't present themselves as a commercial or real product, and as such are not a threat to the property legally owned by CBS/Paramount. There's been a lot said on both sides, but when it comes to Alec Peters and his intentions, he says it all himself within his own report. But as we went on, we knew we weren't going to be happy just doing a fan film. And therein lies the real problem people are avoiding. He outright states that he doesn't consider this a fan film. Even the outlining descriptions and proposals have referred to this as real Star Trek and tried to decry the actual real Star Trek as a big budget fraud despite being, you know, the real Star Trek produced by the owners of that property. But it gets worse, as there are parts of this that donators should be questioning, not supporting. A big part of this process was to create our own studio, to rent a building, convert it to a sound stage, and build our sets there. Originally, I'd planned on shooting everything on the sets of Star Trek, New Voyages, where James Cawley had generously offered to let us film. We would have converted their sets to look less like TOS, shot the film, then gone into post-production on it, and frankly, AXANAR would probably have been done by now, if we'd stuck to the original plan. But then, Prelude to AXANAR director Christian Gossett said no, he couldn't shoot there, not even at the new facility I had helped James rent and move into. He said there wasn't enough room to do what he wanted and the sound stage was too small. He also didn't want to use James' crew, which was comprised of all amateurs. Christian felt our only option was to find a facility in Los Angeles. This decision changed AXANAR dramatically, as it suddenly meant that the first AXANAR Kickstarter would have to pay for the infrastructure, not the production. Again, if we hadn't made this decision, then we could have had AXANAR done by now, and probably for the money we had already raised. The quality wouldn't perhaps be quite as good as we had hoped, but we certainly could have gone that route. To highlight, there was a cheaper way of doing it, a way to actually make the film, and it would have been done by now. But AXANAR decided to change their intention. They took the money for the film, changed the proposals, and conned people out of money to build a studio. Why is that so important? Well, aside from all out lying about it and not delivering what people have very kindly paid for, Ares Studios, we funded and created a film studio. While not yet finished, Ares Studio will have everything needed to make movies for years to come. People donated money for a fan film they thought looked cool. That money never got spent on a film. It got spent here, at Ares Studios. Because, as said above, the amateur fan films were filled with amateurs and they wanted something better. Oh, and that part about years to come, this isn't to fund or create one project. The donations have been used to pay for a profit-making venture, which has been denied on and off, but confirmed right here on AXANAR's blog, and in the 2015 report it also talks about the studio hosting a sci-fi film school, an AXANAR convention, and selling products made using money for a non-profit venture. Speaking of, in addition, I have been working full-time on AXANAR since the Kickstarter last year. There is an enormous amount of work to do in order to get a studio up and running and put together a movie. It is safe to say that Diana and I each work at least 60 hours a week on AXANAR, which doesn't count all of the time we spend at conventions promoting AXANAR to fans and soon-to-be fans. Aside from the fact they don't need a studio, or any of the stuff to create AXANAR, as admitted in the same report above, admitting that you're paying the person you live with a salary finance that contributes to your household, while pointing out that so far over $38,000, that's just from funding. It doesn't include the unlicensed merchandise from model kits to coffee. Finance that comes from donations, for a non-profit fan film. In the simplest terms, AXANAR has very simply used the Star Trek properties to create more than a fan film. They're using that property to create a competitor to the brand they're trying to take the IP from. They've used funding through advertising that IP to create a studio, gain financial reward, sell merchandise, and that's just the beginning. The worst part is that they are being defended, and they are rallying people to defend them. But the truth of the matter is that this man has let the idea get to his head. He's even recast the lead role as he sees his career being a Hollywood producer. He's pushed the boundaries, broken the law, and used the passion of a group of fans to not create a simple fan film but build himself a studio, use a non-profit venture and someone else's property to create a for-profit venture, and worse. He's done it all with fan-donated money. Since posting the above originally on Tumblr, more has come to light. PropWorks, a company Peters owns that went bankrupt last year, is now operating from this facility, a facility paid for by fans donating to a film. Merchandise using Star Trek IP has been sold to donors and the rest of cash unaccounted for in the financials. Private donations have been confirmed by Peters on Facebook, yet that money doesn't appear on any financial statements. His sci-fi film school and unlicensed Star Trek /AXANAR conventions, to be held at the studio, were another venture costing up to $1,000 for each student. And his blog outright confirms financial ventures, plans to dominate CBS, and even a ridiculous recent post about how they ripped out all the carpets and furniture so they could spend donations on decorating the offices. For all the rage and anger at CBS for acting upon their legal right to stop this, why not ask why it's alright for someone to use a non-profit venture to create profit and a business for himself? To try and hijack the property, and most importantly, why it's alright to outright lie to people and do it all on their funding. Peters hasn't just crossed legal lines here, he's abused the trust of people who donated to his project. He's even belittled people for paying small amounts and banished donators for disagreeing with him. This man has intentionally lied to people, poked the bear and gotten bitten. He's lived off donations given to him in goodwill and spent it on himself and his side projects. Why in the world are people still defending him? This is a point where people who have watched him spend their money need to start asking questions, and I hope his new attorneys know what they're getting themselves in for.
Exactly. That's in that article. If you donated to them, I'm really sorry that you got tricked. So you don't need to keep defending them. It seems to me like most Star Trek fans are still defending AXANAR. There's all these groups on Facebook about saving them and supporting them, and really we should all be doing the opposite. I thought of a quote, a Star Trek quote from Star Trek, the 6th movie, when the Final Frontier and the Klingons are going, Praxis has been blown up, and Spock says to Kirk, they're going to die, and Kirk says, "Let them die," quote, "let them die." So I think that's what we should basically be doing when it comes to AXANAR. Anyway, here's the second article on a website called maybes.ws.
AXANAR and profit or income or salary or. Fan made 5 responses January 3, 2016. By now, you might have heard that Alec Peters' AXANAR, the non-Trek Star Trek fan film, is being sued by CBS and Paramount. I am still trying to wrap my head around the whole thing, but so far a few things seem to be coming into focus, for me at least. Disclaimer, this is an opinion piece made by someone looking down from the cheap seats. This is not a news article. Look, it's real simple. The envelope, the line, just kept getting pushed further and further. At first, it was all out of pocket, and the only rule was don't sell it. Then the caterer had to get paid, and that was okay because people gotta eat. Then someone outside donated to pay for the caterer, but nothing was being sold so no one cared. Then came the crowdfunding, and the big worry was that the production was driving that extra mile to the director's brother's store to buy lumber, using the production to funnel a bit of the funds to friends or family. But nothing was being sold, so no one cared. Then Peters wrote himself a check. In a nutshell, AXANAR's revised 2015 annual report clearly shows Alec Peters drawing a salary of $38,000 for the year, or about 6.5% of the budget. That report was released on December 15, 2015. About a week later the lawsuit was filed. Coincidence? The issue seems to be hard for a lot of fans to grasp. Surely it must be about the amount of money raised. Or maybe it's that Paramount is jealous at getting shown up over quality. No, I am starting to think it's where that money was going. The concept of making no money has somehow turned into not making a profit, which is not the same thing. A hat tip to Michael Hinman over at 1701news.com for pointing this out. Seriously, it's a great opinion piece, way better than mine. You should go read it.
Yeah, That was the first part of it. I'll just get the computer to read the second part of the same article.
But it's a non-profit. The problem with this theory of no profit is that it can be used to totally make taxable income for yourself as the creator of the project, and that money can be used to pay for a wedding, or a new car, or your rent, and so on. What did Peters do with his $38,000? How should I know? Go ask him. The point is that if I raise, hypothetically, $3 million and make a film for $2.50 million, can I just pocket the remaining $500,000 and point to the balance sheet and say, see, no profits? Does it matter if that money is taken after production, or during pre-production as a monthly salary? If I get paid a monthly salary, am I making money? Fan films have until recently been something that one did out of love with cash out of pocket. You made the film and came out with a net loss. Then came crowdfunding, and it was understood that you could pay the caterer and some other services, but not yourself. If you got Patrick Stewart to come in and it cost you $500 or some, we get it. He's a professional, and it was basically okay for him to get a check, or at least reimbursed for travel expenses. But in no case was it ever okay for the guy running things to get a check. We continue to object. The other thing that keeps bugging the shit out of me are all the people running around online posting it's a non-profit, blah. Okay, show me. Don't find a quote somewhere or take a vote. Don't give me hearsay, show me, like I did with the salaries above. Take a moment and look up the articles of incorporation for AXANAR Productions, then get back to me about this whole thing being non-profit. Here, I'll even help. I have a feeling CBS was a lot clearer about how they felt than we have been led to believe. Just look at the quote from CBS in this article from TheWrap.com. CBS has not authorized, sanctioned, or licensed this project in any way, and this has been communicated to those involved. We continue to object to professional commercial ventures trading off our property rights and are considering further options to protect these rights. AXANAR has already said in January that the studio, a studio paid for and built using donor cash, will go on to be used for other film productions, having already acquired the rights to a fantastic book series by David I have no dog in this particular fight Gerald. So will Ares Digital, which replaced Backer Keat for Kirk Fulfillment, live on after AXANAR to compete with Backer Keat, as a for-profit company? I don't know. How about a cup of coffee? Small potatoes. Where did they spend $118,428.88 in advertising? Why are most just now learning that Tony Todd left the production 3 months ago? And why is he still listed on the site, and being used to sell coffee? I get that Ramirez and all are not trademarked and therefore blah blah blah, but the Klingon D6 being used on the decaf is trademarked, no. I am a fan and therefore I own it. Sure, and you probably think freedom of speech applies to, Ed. Seriously, I had no idea so many Trek fans were up to date on IP and copyright law. Seriously. So, as someone who donated to AXANAR, I'd like CBS/Paramount to come together and work things out. I'd like to see some sort of deal worked out, sure. But when you start to appreciate that this is not about how we envision Trek or which timeline or character or blah blah, it seems unlikely. This is instead a simple matter of, what next? If Peters can simply pay himself to make Trek, then what next? No really, I am asking, if he can do that then what comes next?
Right. That's pretty clear cut. Perhaps a lot of people who are supporting AXANAR do not sort of understand copyright law. I understood copyright law, so that's why I knew not to support it.
There always was a slippery slope when it came to what I always
This
felt
is from
was a
news.com.
generous move by Paramount Pictures and CBS Corp to turn a blind eye not just to Star Trek fan fiction but Star Trek fan productions as well. Some of the early attempts were very low budget. It was more about good writing and some extreme technical know-how to make some of those early fan-produced episodes, and it seemed there was nothing for CBS/Paramount to worry about. Then James Cawley turned the entire fan production industry on its head with an elaborate continuation of the original Star Trek series, complete with sets and professional crew, that I felt would finally end CBS/Paramount's reluctant allowance of fan productions. Yet, the studios remained quiet, and didn't say much. In fact, the only time the owners of the Star Trek properties spoke up was when some fans tried to create their own fifth season of Star Trek Enterprise a decade ago, collecting more than $100,000 in actual cash from fans. That money was supposedly going to be sent to CBS/Paramount to help fund a new season of Enterprise, money the studio said it could never accept. It's been nearly 15 years since Star Trek fan productions came about, and it took nearly 15 years for one production to cross the line so much it forced the hand of CBS/Paramount to stop it. And sadly, Star Trek AXANAR is going to ruin it for everyone else. I've read some of the commentary from fans, journalists, and such, angry at CBS/Paramount for filing suit against a production that has raised something like $1 million in crowdfunding to create their production. But I am just completely lost on where this anger is coming from. What justifies it? And why can't CBS/Paramount decide to defend its copyright whenever it feels like it? I know that many of us have grown up on Star Trek, and we feel like we own it. But here's the thing, we don't. It's not ours. It belongs to someone else. Well, to someone else's. Not even my friend Rod Roddenberry has an ownership stake in the franchise despite it being created by his father. The move to allow fan productions of Star Trek was an unprecedented one. But then again, CBS/Paramount always has looked to break the mold when it comes to Star Trek, giving more than an inch to fans and then only watching them take a mile. Remember the unsolicited script policy Paramount had back in the day? A policy that launched the careers of many writers, like Ronald D. Moore? That lasted far longer than lawyers would have liked, but it was so successful in bringing fresh blood into Star Trek that Paramount had to be dragged away from it kicking and screaming. Now, the studio is like anyone else, not accepting unsolicited scripts. How many Brian Fullers are being lost because of that policy? Whether you like what CBS/Paramount is doing or not, the companies have every right to defend their copyrights. They have every right to give some leeway to whomever they want, and no leeway to others. They own Star Trek, and they have every right to set the rules. And the rules always have been well defined. The biggest one? It can't be a commercial venture. In the beginning, that was well understood by everyone. But as some productions pushed the envelope a little, others did it too. It went from an interpretation no one can make money on to where the person at the top can't make a profit. That's an amazing leap, don't you think? If you were giving money to a charity and you found out that while they are a non-profit, the CEO makes $10 million a year, you'd be a little angry, right? Then how is this different? Sure, there is no profit plan for AXANAR, but you've just raised more money than most independent films get, and those films pay crew quite well, if not cast. How is this not a commercial enterprise? AXANAR raised $1 million. Instead of doing it through purchases and tickets, they did it through fundraising. Instead of distributing ticket sales to its cast and crew and producers, it distributed fundraising money. What's the difference? I'm not saying AXANAR is guilty of anything. But the move was enough to get CBS/Paramount to say, wait, hold up. And CBS/Paramount has every right to do this. It doesn't even have to fire a warning shot first. Anyone who takes on a production using someone else's property runs the risk of having it yanked away without warning. Think about it this way. You want to put on a concert with a local band, and you know that this farmer in town has allowed people to use some of his vacant land for events as long as they clean up and don't make a profit. You don't need a contract with him or anything, you can just come and use it. Well, you start selling tickets, and the farmer decides he doesn't like someone in the band, so even though you've already sold 500 tickets, the farmer yanks your venue. Is he allowed to do that? Yes, Does he have to give any warning? No. There is no contract between CBS/Paramount and the producers of AXANAR that I am aware of. The producers run the same risk every other fan production in the past have run when it comes to doing a Star Trek production. The only difference this time is that these producers are holding $1 million of your money. I sincerely hope that what AXANAR has done doesn't hurt the future of Star Trek fan films. Some of my favorite people active in the film industry got their start in fan productions, and they told wonderful stories on limited budgets, never making a dime for their work. But because AXANAR thought it could be different, that it could create profit and not call it profit, and CBS/Paramount would turn a blind eye, it might mean that great Star Trek fan productions will soon be a product of the past. Don't blame CBS/Paramount, they never had to allow it in the first place. Blame those who couldn't just leave well enough alone.
There you go. So that was from 1701news.com. Okay, now the following article is from the same website, but it is a different title. This one's called Peter's AXANAR Quality Spurred Lawsuit. Okay. Whoops. And this was published on the 1st of February this year, only 2 days ago, according to my time zone. Okay, speak.
It's been a month since CBS Corp and Paramount Pictures Incorporated shocked the Star Trek fan community when it filed a copyright infringement suit against Alec Peters, his planned full-length Trek production, AXANAR, and its already produced short, Prelude to AXANAR. From almost the beginning, Peters has championed the professional quality of AXANAR and defended its need to raise more than $1.1 million from fans, even after being served with court papers. And in an exclusive sit-down with 1701 NEWS, Peters refuses to back away from those claims. There's a reason why Prelude to AXANAR and AXANAR look like professional movies, because we have professionals working on them, Peters said. These are professionals. They do this for a living. They're not fans who are voice actors, or Elvis impersonators who have a hobby and have always wanted to play Captain Kirk. That's not to knock fan films. I'm just saying, if you want volunteers, you get a certain quality. You want professionals? You've got to pay for them. It's real simple. In fact, that's the very reason why Peters says Paramount and CBS targeted AXANAR in the first place. It's real simple, because of our quality, he said. Star Trek Continues is a fan film. Amateur actors, beautiful sets, well done photography. But it's a fan film. There's no way you take that for a real TV show. Star Trek, New Voyages? Fan film. It looks good, well directed, but no one's ever going to take that for a network TV show. Yet those seem to be the very reasons Paramount and CBS chose to take AXANAR to court, and not the fan films. In a statement released to 1701 NEWS, the two companies called Star Trek a treasured franchise in which CBS and Paramount continue to produce new original content for its large universe of fans. The producers of AXANAR are making a Star Trek picture they describe themselves as a fully professional, independent Star Trek film. Their activity clearly violates our Star Trek copyrights, which of course, we will continue to vigorously protect. The fact that CBS and Paramount are not taking other unofficial Trek productions to court is exactly what Peters says his pro bono legal team will defend in court. The two studios already said that it's okay, basically, letting these guys go, Peters added. Star Trek Continues has raised $400,000, and you haven't said anything about that. Star Trek, Renegades has raised $800,000, and they use characters from the original too. In essence, by not going after those other productions, CBS and Paramount have waived their rights to go after AXANAR, Peters concludes. And he's ready to use that against them. It's going to have no effect on fan films, he said. Star Trek Continues is starting another Kickstarter. Which is going to be real interesting because that Kickstarter, If that isn't stopped by CBS, we can use that against them in court. That's good for us because one of our arguments is waiver. They waived their rights because they let this go on for so long. Yet, intellectual property attorney Susie Martini disagrees, to a point. If you got a copyright, there is no obligation to go after every infringer, said Martini, an attorney with Shoemaker Loop and Kendrick in Tampa, Florida. But from an equitability perspective, if you're targeting one person, they could have an argument that you're specifically targeting them and never enforce these rights on everyone else. They could have an argument, but I don't know how much that would carry the day. To claim a copyright, CBS and Paramount have to meet specific conditions to prove their case, Martini said. First, they have to show AXANAR had access to the copyrighted material, that they did indeed copy it, and that it resulted in something that is substantially similar to copyrighted material. But Peters maintains he had at least tacit approval from CBS representatives during a sit-down the two sides had last August at Creation Entertainment's official Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. What they said was they won't give me any feedback to help us, Peters said. They couldn't tell us what we could do and what we couldn't do. When we cross the line, they'll let us know. Peters shared that conversation with the trade publication The Wrap a short time later, telling them that CBS simply stated they couldn't make any money off the project. That same story, however, included a statement from CBS that said the media company has not authorized, sanctioned, or licensed this project in any way, and this has been communicated to those involved. We continue to object to professional commercial ventures trading off our property rights, and are considering further options to protect these rights. But that apparently didn't faze Peters. In the past, where they did have a problem with a fan film, they contacted that fan film, and only once did they ever issue a cease and desist order, Peters said. While cease and desist demands from lawyers can be effective, they don't carry the force of law. Nor are they required ahead of any litigation like what CBS and Paramount filed against AXANAR, attorney Martini said. I think on a case like this that is high profile, they are trying to make a point, she said of CBS and Paramount. They didn't want to shut them down quietly. Maybe they want to shut down all fan films, and want to have a precedent. They could be saying, make a fan film, but be prepared, we're going to enforce our rights. Whether or not it violates what Peters said was CBS' directive to not make money, one of the larger criticisms coming from fans was the fact that Peters revealed he collected a $38,000 salary from the AXANAR crowdfunding. However, Peters defended that move. I'm not volunteering my time, he said. I can't do this for free. If I make minimum wage, I'm lucky. The fans who donate, they understand. They don't have any problem with me paying myself. In fact, those that seem to have the problem, according to Peters, are those who are not donors. The donors, for the most part, are the ones who get it, he said. They see the work we put into it, they feel the love on a daily basis from us. Unfortunately, you have a lot of people who have never been in business, and they have a problem with Alec paying himself. Is earning a salary the same as profit? It's actually a non-starter, Martini said. There is no requirement to make any money with copyright infringement, she said. Making a profit has nothing to do with whether you are infringing someone else's work. It has to do with damages and liability. And Peters didn't just pay himself. He also paid actors and crew to work on AXANAR. Well, it's real simple, we don't ask anyone to work for free, Peters said. They all get paid. When Richard Hatch worked on Star Trek, New Voyages, he got paid. When Lou Ferrigno was on Star Trek Continues, he got paid. Actors are always getting paid. Crew. We had 2 Academy Award winners working on Prelude to AXANAR. Now those people can go out and work for $500 a day. They're coming to work for us for $150 a day. Is it wrong that we pay them? You know, if you want a fan film, then go see a fan film. We're trying to make the best Star Trek possible. And at the end of the day, when it comes to what unauthorized Star Trek production is violating copyright more, Peters says it's not AXANAR. We violate CBS copyright less than any other fan film, he said. Star Trek continues and Star Trek, New Voyages violate more than we do. AXANAR, Peters said, doesn't call itself Star Trek anymore, nor does it use iconic characters like Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. We don't use the chevron, he added. We don't use the uniforms you're used to seeing. We don't use the original series, bridge or sets. Those two productions, Continues and New Voyages, are entirely copyright infringement. Since the lawsuit, there has been a lot of contention online, but Peters claims nothing negative directly to him. I have so many people who contact me, it's ridiculous the amount of fans who send me positive messages, Peters said. I have not had one hater message me on Facebook. They'll talk about me elsewhere. But the message is this is the best Star Trek we've seen, and are you okay? It's very nice, and I'm doing great. But AXANAR itself is on hiatus, as Peters welcomes an unnamed second legal team to join his already announced pro bono representation of Winston and Strawn. Even with that well-established law firm on his side, Peters wants to never have to step into a courtroom. What we're hoping for is a settlement, he said. We definitely don't want to have to go into litigation, and that's just a road, it's one that we're prepared for, but we don't want to be doing. The best way to make AXANAR is to reach a settlement with Paramount/CBS and see where it goes from there. It's fair to say that there is some cause for worry. When a multimillion-dollar corporation serves you with a lawsuit, that isn't an issue to be taken lightly. Peters' reaction, however. Game on. Additional reporting by Michael Hinman. An explanation of the editorial process behind this interview from the editor-in-chief of 1701 NEWS, as well as additional quotes that were part of the first draft of this story, can be found right here.
Right, so anyway, yep, clearly any quote that is from Peters proves that he's, quite deceitful and manipulative and underhanded, and really I would just sum all that up as being a scammer. Anyway, here is a comment from somebody from Reddit, from a fan, regarding the case for funding it.
As some of you may know, Star Trek AXANAR is about to start up a third Kickstarter in order to fund their fan production. I'm here to tell you why you shouldn't give them another dime. This is AXANAR's third funding campaign. The first was for the short film ad, Prelude to AXANAR. The second was for the actual production of the full-length feature. That second Kickstarter earned them $600,000, more than any other fan production in history and more than many indie films and single network TV episodes. AXANAR claims they need more money because the initial $600,000 was only used for building sets. They need more money for actual filming. The next round could conceivably shoot them up over the $1 million mark. $1 million for a production that can't be marketed and can't make money. It's being written and directed by someone whose only experience is a Pitfall video game and, despite the strength of its supporting cast, was conceived of and stars someone with zero acting experience in the main role. Basically, this is a vanity project. A very expensive vanity project. There's even more Hollywood experience in Star Trek, Renegades, and yet that film is a mess. It's mostly fan wank with thin characters, bad writing, and boring, meaningless space battles. Some people like that kind of stuff. But do you need $1 million to make fan wank and CGI explosions? Do you need that much money to put Richard Hatch in a turtle head and make him shoot torpedoes that move at 10 miles an hour? Because between the cast saying edgy things like bitch whore, that's about all Prelude was. But that's not even my argument for letting this ship sink. AXANAR is incredibly opaque as far as their production and expenses. Where did this initial $600,000 go? Many of the designers, stagehands, and workers are volunteers. Their travel expenses are not even paid for. Nobody even bought them lunch. I know because I've spoken to some of them. So materials and rental space alone ate up all this cash? Really? On top of this, AXANAR site claims it's been taking donations in return for the same rewards offered in the Kickstarter, but outside the Kickstarter ecosystem. That means they have an unknown amount of undocumented, unaccounted for money in hand from between these two Kickstarters. This makes me think there are only two possibilities here. Either these folks spent their money extremely poorly or they pocketed a large chunk of this cash. Neither one of these scenarios gives me much faith in their project. Both, in fact, are horrifying. And without receipts we will never know how this money was spent. AXANAR has no legal responsibility to tell us. They don't even have to finish the production. Further investment is an enormous risk with very small return. So there you have it. There are lots of productions out there. Some are even original. I'm not against spending on any of them. I'm just asking you to consider them instead of pouring more into an already strained and bloated enterprise. AXANAR got more than their chance. They need to make do with what they have and we need to move on.
Yeah, Reddit is a site full of trolls, and that one was article was archived, and basically if you post the truth on that site, it just gets, deleted. Anyway, I've got a lot of things against Reddit. That's basically it for the video. The truth is out there. I think that's what I'll call this video. If you want to support Star Trek fan fiction, please make a donation and watch the Star Trek Continues and also Renegades. Those are both very much more legitimate, non-scammy Star Trek fan films. Additionally, there is in a few months, in 5 months' time, there's a new Star Trek movie coming out, and in January next year, there's a new Star Trek TV series. All the fans should get behind that. If I see any of the Star Trek fans, who like to support AXANAR and then are bagging the real Star Trek productions, gee whiz, guys, get a life. Learn that only Paramount and CBS can actually make real Star Trek. Anything that's not made by them isn't canon. The reason I like Star Trek Online, for example, and this channel's supposedly about that, is because it is canon, because it is sanctioned by Paramount and CBS, because Cryptic Studios have to get permission from CBS for anything that they put in the Star Trek Online game. And, it's licensed. So anyway, I'm sorry for all the people who are going to have to realize that they need to change their view on this. All the people I'm seeing, the reason I made this video today was that on Facebook every day, I'm seeing people still continually reposting all this support AXANAR, petition against Paramount. I mean, grow a brain, guys. Come on. You're in the wrong. Realize that. And we should basically not be supporting AXANAR. Let them die. Let's start a petition about how they're evil and how they're not allowed to make profit and how everybody wants a refund. Really, there should be a class action from all the fans suing AXANAR to get a refund for all the donations that were made since they profited from it. Now that guy pretty much owes everybody millions of dollars. Okay, Peters, I wouldn't listen to anything he says. He's absolutely full of it, and I think that guy belongs in jail. Thanks for watching this video from the Tim of Borg show. Even if you are an AXANAR supporter, please feel free to thumbs down this video, and just to let you know that does actually only promote the video further, and it actually helps me at the end of the day. So, thumbsing down really doesn't stop other people from watching the video. It actually helps other people see the video. So thanks for that. If you don't like AXANAR, thumbs up the video. Alright, thanks for watching. Ciao. Live long and prosper. And remember the quote from Kirk, let them die.